Okay, here we move ahead, and Dogen has established his temple in Kyoto, and then in 1243, for reasons that are never explained in the Dogen record, so there's a lot of speculation, but he decides to leave Kyoto and go up and build a temple in the mountains with the support of his samurai patron, Hatano. Some people claim that the Kyoto mainstream monks kind of booted him out of the capital. Others might say that he was following the instructions of Rujing, which was to stay away from the secularized urban lifestyle and have a monastery in the mountains. But in any case, this is what happens in 1243, and then they start to build a Heiji, what's going to become a Heiji temple. It was first called Daibutsuji, and then was renamed the Heiji a few years later. Okay, according to this document, more miraculous things are taking place in relation to Dogen's experience. Here, flowers are falling from the sky over a Heiji. Here, the five-colored clouds appear over a Heiji temple, and Dogen comments on this in one of his sermons that a Heiji is the only temple in Japan where you have that auspicious sign, and the only place you would experience it in China was at Mount Tiandai. Okay, now here is where Dogen gets called to visit the shogun, and the shogun government had taken over in Japan in the early 1200s, around the same time as Dogen was first studying Buddhism. And the shogun government in that period in Japan was supportive of Zen. And apparently the shogun, Hojo Tokiyori, wanted to establish a great Zen temple in Kamakura, which was the temporary capital, and invited Dogen. According to the legends, and I'm not endorsing this as history, but this is what we're told, and invited Dogen and was going to make him the offer of the temple. That temple is known as Kenshoji Temple. It was built in 1250s. It does exist in Kyoto, and there is, and eventually the Hojo invited a monk to come from China to lead that temple. Now, in the episode of Dogen's interaction with the Hojo, you can see, gets a little upset by something Dogen has done, and we're going to see more about that in a short film segment in a moment, and threatens to cut off his head. And this was a scene from a kabuki play that was made around the time of Dogen's anniversary about 10 years ago. There's different versions of what happens. According to one version, the force of Dogen's meditation breaks the sword in half. According to another version, the Hojo comes to his senses and realizes he's not actually going to execute Dogen, and he throws the sword away. In the film we're going to see, and this scene is cut out, so I have a still of it. Dogen, with his assistant monk, is joined by the Hojo under the full moon to practice meditation. This is an episode where the Chinese monk, Lanke Dolyu, is at the Kenshoji temple. And here's an interesting story connected with this whole episode, that apparently Dogen, in turning down the Hojo's offer of the temple and upsetting the Hojo, decided to return to the mountains. But he left behind one of his disciples, Gemyo, who continued to have a negotiation with the shogun, and apparently, according to the stories, was willing to accept a piece of land from the shogun. When Gemyo got back up to Heiji in the mountains and told Dogen about this, he was furious, and he decided to expel Gemyo from the estate. And not only that, but they dug up his meditation area and refused to let anybody ever again occupy that area to make sure it was cleansed of that wrongdoing on Gemyo's part. And I think this is the final slide. Yeah, okay, we had the 800th birth anniversary of Dogen in 2000 and the 750th anniversary of his death in 2003. And this was not an official Soto sect memorial, but some of the Soto Zen temples in that prefecture near Kamakura put up this memorial that says Shikantaza right across the street from Kenshoji Temple. As I guess you can see it as a kind of statement, hey, Dogen could have been here, but he chose to leave it. And so it's interesting that the legacy of these stories continues to live on. The characters say Shikantaza just sitting in meditation. Okay, so let me turn now to the to the 5 minutes of the video.
春は花、夏ホトトギス、秋は月、冬雪さえて涼しかりけり。春は花、夏ホトトギス。道元、当たり前のことではないか。いかにも当たり前。あるがまま、あるがままの真実の姿を見ることこそ悟りなのです。座禅は大海の中に水を見ることなのです。ただし自らの仏性を知らねば大海の中に水のあることを知ることはできません。わからんぞ道元。悟りとは何じゃ。仏性とは何じゃ。幸い今宵は満月。時折殿、庭に出て月を見てみませぬか。月を。見事じゃ。少女潔白満足無欠。あなたの心の中にある月こそ仏性なのです。天空にあってこその月。自身の中に月なぞ見えぬわ。さらに言うなれば、あの満月もやがては駆け滅んでゆく定めであろう。道元殿、この地を見てください。私はこの地にいずこにも負けぬ大寺院を建立します。どうかこの鎌倉にとどまり解散となっていただきたい。そして道元殿の仏法の一大拠点として。お断り申し上げる。何？断ると？私の寺は越前の小さな小さな永平寺です。道元殿、私はあなたに会えてよかった。 はこれにてお別れいたします。春は花、夏ホトトギス、秋は月、冬雪さえて涼しかりけり。
Let's go back to the handout. On the top of the second page, you see the poem that is the heart of what's being quoted in Dogen's instruction to the shogun. This was the poem that the Nobel Prize winner Kawabata quoted in his Stockholm lecture in 1968. And the translation here is a little bit different, and I want to come back to that point in a few moments, but basically he lists the 4 seasons and a prominent seasonal image associated with each season, which was pretty typical literary conceit in the Japanese waka poetry tradition, the 5-line 31-verse waka tradition that was a precursor to the 3-line 5-line 31-syllable, which was a precursor to the 3-line 17-syllable haiku. But this was the standard form that was being used in the 13th century. And he has the 4 images and associated with the 4 seasons. And he gives that instruction to the shogun, and the shogun, as you saw at first, says, okay, this is like telling me jingle bells, I guess. And then Dogen puts it in a little more philosophical context. There's another waka poem that I quote here after the Chinese verse, which was also supposed to have been written as part of the instruction to the shogun. And in fact, there were 10 or 12 of these Japanese verses, and that's the only record we have. So a lot of the historians doubt whether Dogen ever made the trip or how much we can know about the trip, because the only writings Dogen left us were the Japanese verses. And they weren't included until 200 years later in this Kenzeki text. So, a lot of question marks come up historically. But one question is, why would he have lectured to the shogun with poetry, of all things? And one theory is that the shogun's wife was also taking part in this, and the waka poetry was part of the feminine literary tradition, and maybe that would have appealed to her, or maybe he was trying to branch out from his more arcane philosophical writings and try to get something that the Hojo would be more familiar with in terms of Japanese culture at the time. As you can see, that second verse, which has the same title as the title of Dogen's famous collection of essays, Shobogenzo, it talks about a small boat drifting in the moonlight, and that could have been a metaphor for Dogen, who went through a lot of anxiety, leaving Eiji and having to deal with these political figures when he was told by his mentor Rujin, stay away from secularization. Or maybe it was a metaphor he was offering to the shogun about the shogun himself. In other scenes in the film, for those of you who have seen it, the shogun is haunted by his memories of